everybody, it's Mel, and we are back for Coach's Corner. We have Pam again from Stelleri, and she's going to be talking about riding with a group. So I'm so excited about these knowledge nuggets she's going to talk about, the little tips. And so, Pam, just start going with what you want to go with.
Thanks, Mel, and thanks for having me back. This is a lot of fun. I know that when you and I were talking about what topics we want to present, I mentioned that I wanted to talk about group riding. And I know that there's a lot going on with group riding. In fact, I know that CTC had a recent email, I think it was back in April, about riding safely in a group. So I kind of want to, instead of talking about safety in a group, but we will touch upon that, I want to talk about why I think cyclists and multi-sport athletes should join a group ride.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah. I mean, like it seems like, oh, why? But like, there's reasons why. So we're going to get into that.
We are. And there are some very good reasons. And I know that a lot of us, I am one of those kinds of people that I really do like riding by myself. It's kind of, I'm riding with my favorite person, kind of a standing joke, but I can call my own shots. I can ride where I want to. But there's such a huge benefit to riding with the group. So I just wanted to talk about that and maybe encourage somebody to give it a try if they haven't already. All right. Yeah. So let's first talk about why should you ride in a group and why is it different than riding by yourself or with a couple of friends? Group rides give you all kinds of new skills. So handling skills in a group, it challenges you to ride faster than you normally would if you rode solo. There's a huge social aspect to it. And in fact, there was I don't know if anybody subscribes to Carmichael Training Systems blog. So CTS, it's Chris Carmichael. He had an article recently, I think it was back in April, about social facilitation and why group rides are, they're kind of, once you get started on group rides, it's kind of hard to quit them because you begin to make friends or all your friends are there. And so it's the thing that you do to be with your friends. And of course, it's summer, at least it was yesterday. So it's a great time to get out and ride. And there's something called co-action effects. And so that's having training partners around you. So, even if your friends that you ride with, you might ride with them all the time, but in a group setting, it seems like there's this a little bit more of an impetus to challenge each other. So that's a lot.
Yeah. And I think maybe that also kind of comes into like the accountability, right? Because it's like, oh, my friend's going to be riding. Then I'm going to ride. And so it's like a little bit more of accountability for each other to show up and just kind of put yourself out there.
Absolutely. And I think, depending on the group ride, you also have opportunities just about any day of the week. And we'll talk about that a little bit later because there are plenty of group rides that are available. But it's also, like you said, the accountability. If you know that at the end of the workday, you're going to go meet, your group for your Tuesday night ride, you're more likely to shut off your email early and make sure that you get out of work on time so you can make it to that ride. Weekends are the same thing. So a lot of folks want to do longer weekend rides, and joining a group makes it that much easier. Somebody kind of has done all the preliminary work for you, where you're going to meet, how long you're going to ride. So it's really good. And it's sort of an easier access to getting that long weekend ride done.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing too, like you're saying with like a group and like a weekend ride, is sometimes you get to explore places you can't really explore during the week, or maybe not can't, but that there's like a timing issue is not as easy during the week. So then you get to see things.
Oh, for sure. And there's also a barrier. So if you wanted to try going someplace, it's nice to have new routes, right? It's nice to have the old, familiar, comfortable routes that you can just, you don't have to think about it. You're like, oh, I'm going to go ride my go-to today because I know it like the back of my hand. But it's so nice to have that variety. And a group ride will be really helpful because not only will they potentially show you new places to ride, but hopefully you don't get lost, or you are always with somebody. So if you veer off track, somebody is there to see it happen. Or you have a course map, or there's all these other guides in place so that you can go and explore something new. You don't have to do it on your own.
Yeah. So I guess like maybe the next question is, well, how do you choose like the group?
So that's really interesting because I think that there are a lot of things that come into play with choosing a group ride. The first one, I think, is that you have to choose one that matches your skill level. So if you fall into a group that's constantly going, whole hog from the minute they get released out of the gate and they're off and they drop you within the first mile, that's not fun unless you turn yourself inside out to keep up with them, and then a few weeks later you're keeping up with them. So that's kind of an impetus for riding with the faster group. But if you ride with a group that's too slow for you, it's the same kind of problem that you're kind of waiting around. So the first thing is trying to find a group that matches your skill level, or the skill level that you know that you want to get to, because I think that there is that. I think that some groups ride the same route. A lot of people like that. So, if they like the familiarity, then that's really good. Other groups like to do something new every single time. I know that a couple of the groups that I ride with, they have a route that they post every week. So sometimes that's fun too. Is it a route that I know? Is it something that I feel safe doing? So I think that's really important when it comes to the comfort level of joining that group. Also, obviously, a group ride has to be compatible with your schedule, right?
Yes.
And with your constraints. So like there are some really great group rides that I know are happening, a little south of me or a little east of me, but it's like, am I going to get there in time? Is it, something that I want to wait all day and drive an hour to get to? So those kinds of things also come into play. And then you also have to make sure that you ride with people that you like, because if you join a group and they're, nobody's really talking to you, or it's not really people that and maybe you don't, have a connection with the folks that you're riding with, then you're probably not going to be, it's not going to be something that you return to every week.
Yeah, that is actually a good point. I mean, it's not to say don't try new groups, but also you also have to get something from it for yourself. It's not just about the miles, it's about like the community. Yeah.
And you have to feel safe with that group. So I think that I've ridden with a lot of different groups over the years, and I know CTC has a bunch of group rides, and they've got them, I think, a couple days a week at least. But there are other groups too that, I've ridden with that I trust them because I've ridden with the people that I've been with. So I know that, what they're doing. They're not going to do anything dangerous. Sometimes I think that the routes they choose are maybe not what I would choose, but if you're with a group of people, then you feel a little bit more comfortable with them. But yeah, and I also, to your point too, I think you might not be exactly at the skill level as the group that you're trying, but if they are encouraging, so even if you show up and you don't really know the people and they're like, oh, these people are a little bit more advanced than I am, you know what, if they're encouraging, stick with it, because it makes you a better rider. All of the group workouts, I think they work on not just working on your speed, but on riding together and learning how to find the right line. So all that stuff is super helpful just as growing as an athlete.
Yeah, this also made me think most groups will have an A, B, C, maybe D group. And maybe somebody who's listening doesn't know what that means. So usually like an A group is faster, and it kind of depends on the group that you're riding with, on what that speed is. And then there's the B group, which is a little bit slower than the fast group. Like, I don't want to say it's not necessarily slow, but that's something also to kind of pay attention to, that if you've got questions, maybe reach out to that club or that group to understand what the actual paces mean. And they may even post it, or they may announce it before the ride starts, and maybe seed yourself where you could be a little comfortable to begin with. And then if you feel like you want to stretch yourself and to improve your pace and your speed, then, get to another group. But yeah, most groups have something that starts with an A, maybe goes to C or D.
Absolutely. And I think most groups will tell you ahead of time, either in their communication or a website or an email, who you should join. I think it's really great when there are a variety of groups like that, because like you said, you should seed yourself with the one that you think is going to match your skill level. But over time, you could advance And the other thing is, if you decide that, okay, I've been riding with the C group and I think that I'm ready to join the B group, if they're riding the same course and you fall off the back of the B group, then the C group comes by and picks you up. And here
That's
you
such
are.
a great point.
And it's easy, and then you're not hanging out there by yourself. I think one thing that I want to really emphasize is that if the group posts their route, it should be really important for you to know where you're going. So I would suggest don't rely on the group. You never know what's going to happen. There are some groups that are no drop rides. So they will wait. They will wonder where you went if they don't see you coming up in 10 minutes. There are some groups that will wait at the hills or they'll wait at a turn. But there are other groups that are drop rides, that they are out there for a really great workout. And if you're hanging back or, if you have a mechanical, you're kind of on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I think group rides are a really great opportunity and there's safety in numbers and all this, I think it's still really important to be self-sufficient.
Yes, I definitely agree. And that was actually a good point about ones that are drop and no drop, because if you get into a situation where maybe you're not comfortable, you have to understand if you should be in a drop or no drop group.
So here's a funny story. Many years ago, I was in a cycling group, and they were mostly all younger guys that, they really wanted to show how great riders they were. So at the time, I'd been riding with them for a while, so I kind of knew what their pace was going to be, and I knew that I'd have to turn myself inside out in order to stay with them. And then we went to a location that I was not familiar with. And we went to, we were out starting in the valley, and we went out to Brady Lake in Kent. And I vaguely remember being there maybe one time, but I had no idea how to get back. And this was before Ride with GPS allowed us to, go back on our own or figure it out. And at that point, I realized that necessity is a mother, and you better keep up with them. Otherwise, you're going to be out there someplace and it's getting dark. So, I think that there's also, it's kind of the flip side. It's terrible to be out where you don't know where you are and your group is pulling away from you and you're just watching them go. But it's another thing to really try to hang on with them and get yourself to be a stronger rider and learn the terrain. But that's kind of that's the part that I think a lot of people are not comfortable with. So I wouldn't start there. I would absolutely start with a group that feels more accommodating of your skill level and where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, group rides are great for the social aspect and getting faster over time. But the other question is, how often should you maybe ride with a group? Because it's probably not going to be every ride, right? Because there's certain reasons to ride with groups and not. So
that's a great point. And I think, so I have to say too, even if you decide that you want to go to a group ride as your recovery ride, that there's a group available and, they're not going to be, as fast as, your Tuesday night group out of spin or whatnot. I think there's also a tendency for us to go way harder on a group ride than we normally would, just because it's that co-action part of it, it's a social facilitation. So I think that for most of us, 1 or 2 group rides a week are a really good place to be, because I think that if you, especially now, when we're getting more daylight, so groups are going to be riding longer, 30, sometimes up to 40 miles, depending on the group. That you're going to be out there. It's going to be a good workout. It's going to be a hard workout. So you probably don't want to pick up and do that again the next day. But I would suggest 1 weekday group ride would be great. And then maybe a group ride on the weekend. So those are usually a little bit longer, maybe not quite as fast. It just depends on the group. But it's just a really great way of holding yourself accountable to 2 really good rides, training rides during the week.
Yeah. It's so true, because you may be tired, but then you're like, well, I want to hang on to this group because I don't want anybody to drop me. And even if it's a no drop group, it doesn't matter. You're mentally, you're like, I just want to keep going. And no matter how much I hurt. And I mean, maybe that's the other nice thing about certain groups that have out and back routes is if you've looked at the route or you're familiar with it and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm not feeling it today, then you can make that turnaround point to go back.
That's a really great point, because I know CTC has at least 1 ride that's out and back. I think that's their Tuesday
Yeah,
Tuesday
the
night.
Tuesday break. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can go out as far as you want and turn around and come back, when you're ready. And not only that, if you're not feeling it, if you're kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna go my own pace, I'm just gonna go at a slow pace, you're gonna get picked up by the people on the way back too. So that's really good. I think even if you know the route of any group that you're going with, if you kind of have a sense of where you are and know that, all right, if I'm really not having a great day today, I can shortcut it.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's a great thing too. I just think that it's, you just have to kind of play it by ear for that day. And then to your point about how many rides should you do, I think there are some group rides that happen later in the week. You just have to remember that if you are racing that weekend, that you might not want to have a super hard group ride, say on a Thursday, if you know that on Saturday you have a race coming up. But that just depends on the individual, right? Some people can do that better than others. I know that I can't. If I did a hard group ride on a Thursday night, I think on Saturday morning I would still be feeling the effects. But know
Samesies.
but yeah, and I think a lot of those group rides, they can be really fun and challenging. And you have to remember that there are some people on group rides that for them that is their competition.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's a fun competition, put it that way.
Right. I mean, it's bragging rights, right? You're not gonna win the pro contract, but you're gonna have the bragging rights, at least for that week.
Right.
So I want to talk about too, I think a lot of folks who haven't done a lot of group rides might not understand the mechanics of a group ride. Mm-hmm. And so most of the group rides that I have done have all used a Paceline to, so when you go out with a group, you're not riding in a big pack of people. You are actually riding in a Paceline, and it's typically a rotating Paceline. So if you don't mind, I will maybe try to describe. I don't have any diagrams, but I'll just do some hand waving so you can kind of figure it out.
That works.
So in a Paceline, it's typically when you have a rider in front and everybody else just kind of lines up behind that rider. It could be a single Paceline or it could be a double Paceline, where instead of, a single line, it's two people riding side by side the entire time, but they act as one line. And so what happens is that if you are the person up in front, you are leading the pack, you are setting the pace, you're also the person who is getting the brunt of the wind resistance. So anybody who's behind you, and everybody loves to be the person behind because you are in the draft zone, right? So you are doing far less work than that person up front. And it's really cool because you can really see how fast you can go on a bike if you're in a Paceline. It's unbelievable sometimes where you feel like it's effortless, and it's because you're in that draft zone. And so the way the Paceline works is that either after a set time or when that first rider gets tired, they will peel off and slowly drift to the back of the line so that they can then take advantage of that draft for a while. You should always drift off to the left. Just very strangely, just recently we were at nationals, multi-sport nationals this past week, and some people were drifting to the right, and I have no idea why they're doing that. And if you're drifting to the right, please stop. So you should, if you are that lead rider and you're ready to peel off, you just have to look behind you, make sure it's safe, make sure no cars are trying to overtake, and then just kind of pull over and then let yourself slowly drift back. So you don't have to, you don't want to keep pedaling hard. You really just want to let your speed decrease so that you find that last rider and then you fall in behind that last rider. And when it's done smoothly, it is a sight to behold, and it is a thing of beauty because it's just this really nice rotation through. Everybody gets a chance to work up front, and then you also have a chance to rest in between, which is what makes it such a fun thing to do and allows you to go faster than you normally would. So a couple rules of thumb, though. If you find that you become that top rider, you made your way to the front, do not go fast. Do not hammer, because here you are now in the front. So remember that the whole idea of riding in this group Paceline is to maintain a steady, even pace. So, if they're tooling around at 21 miles an hour and you get to the front and you're like, I'm in front now, I'm going, they're not going to like you. So just try to maintain that steady pace. The other thing to remember is that if you are not that front rider, you are benefiting from the draft. So you are not working as hard as that front rider. So if you start climbing a hill, for example, that front rider may back off on speed a little bit, because that person is taking, starting on the hill, but also taking in the wind resistance. Do not hit that rider. Be aware that you are going up a hill and that this person's speed may drop a little bit. So just be aware. I think the bottom line in a group ride, and I know that Chris put this in his news, in the CTC newsletter, it's like you have to use safety, have lights, blah, 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 helmet, obviously, but also make sure that you keep your eyes and your ears open.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate with the other riders. If there's something in the road, you got to point it out. Usually that front rider will point it out, but also go around it. So you should sort of be watching what that lead rider is doing rather than, try to react at the last minute. Cars will have a harder time passing the longer pace line, which is why we often ride in a double pace line. So it makes it easier. And when there's a huge group, the smart groups will divide themselves into smaller groups just because they know that traffic issues can be a problem. And motorists do get frustrated, and you got to figure that motorists are getting frustrated because they're afraid. They see a line of cyclists and they are truly afraid to hit that cyclist. And I think their fear turns into anger, and they can get mad, and that's never a good situation. So I think sometimes the safest situation is to divide that group. If it's a huge group, make it into smaller groups.
Yes. So many good points about when you're doing the pace line, and the safety aspect of it is, at the end of the day, a pace line can be so much fun. I remember when I did my first pace line, it was at a CTC triathlon camp, and we were on Wally Road down at Mohican, and I was so intimidated. But once I understood what was happening, then I got very excited and I enjoyed it. And something else to sort of be aware of is each rider has their own little tics, right? So if you know that, like, I'm in front of you, you may realize that, I don't know, I do a little weird twitch with my shoulder. I don't think I do that, but as you're watching somebody, or sometimes somebody unintentionally, they pedal the pedal, then maybe they take a rest pedal and they pedal. Like, people just have these certain things about them. And as you ride in a pace line, you will understand each person's little quirks, little tics. And it's not a bad thing. And it's not necessarily anything that really needs to be corrected. It's just understanding that person in front of you and how they ride and how you need to react.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the fun of the group ride. Once you are comfortable with the people that you're riding, it becomes so much more enjoyable. I also think, to your point, that the more you do it, the better you get at it. So riding in a group it's not something that you just pick up and feel immediately comfortable with if you haven't done it. Riding really close to somebody's wheel can be kind of scary, and so you always want to be behind that person. You don't want to drift off to the side. And I think a lot of us have the danger of doing that. So you really want to be directly behind the rider in front, behind their wheel. You never want to overlap wheels. And by overlap, what I mean is you're kind of pulling alongside such that the rider in front's back wheel and your front wheel have, a little bit of, they're kind of in the same place, because all it takes is that front rider to veer or to do something that goes into your wheel and you've caused a crash. So I'm not saying this to scare anybody. What I want to emphasize is that the safest place to be is directly behind that rider. So you have to be looking out for what that rider's doing. You also have to be looking up the road a little bit, like beyond that rider, to see like what's going on with the terrain. But it makes us better cyclists, because, just riding by yourself or riding inside is never going to give you the situations that you get when you're out riding in a group. And I think, you and I were talking about this before we started the conversation. Draft legal racing is becoming a really hot thing, and it's a lot of fun. And to do it really well, you have to be able to ride with another rider or two or three or however many. And so learning how to do it in a friendly group ride before you get into a race situation is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And it opens up a new opportunity, right? Draft legal racing. I mean, that just, people are starting to really, really get into it. It gives you another opportunity to race.
Yeah. And it's a different level of competition, and, there's other rules with it, but it's still, there's still USAT sanctioned races that are draft legal, but it just adds a different layer of competition, right? And there's nothing wrong with the normal triathlon racing, but when you do draft legal, it's just a little different, and it adds a extra layer of excitement too.
It does. It does. And so I totally agree. Like, my sport is standard duathlon, and you don't really do that draft legal. So that is definitely one of those individual sports. And that's fun. I love doing it because I love the whole time trial aspect of riding a bike. So to me, it just feels like, you're running and then you're time trialing and then you're running again. But for draft legal, it feels like you're kind of in a bike race, and it makes it a lot different. So it's a different animal. So anybody who wants to do draft legal racing should absolutely join group rides and be comfortable and familiar with group riding. And I think it's a lot of fun. And like I said, I think group riding just makes you a better cyclist overall.
I will agree. I think it's definitely made me a better cyclist. When I first started getting a triathlon and started doing group rides with the Cleveland Triathlon Club, I was definitely intimidated. And I was like, I don't really know these people that well. And then here I am doing a group ride with them. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, these are my friends. And whether or not they're like my Tuesday night friends or they're my friends, it doesn't matter, right? They're still my friends. And I did notice, I haven't done this in a while, but when I would consistently go to those rides, let's say May through August, September, I definitely got faster, which was like very cool feeling, like, whoa. And yes, you get faster because you're in this Paceline and, you get that draft zone, but also by yourself, you realize that you are a faster and stronger athlete.
So cool. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It just seems like it's an easy way of doing it because you're not necessarily pushing yourself. You're being pushed by the group. I think it makes it a lot more fun. Totally.
And you don't even realize it sometimes. You're like, whoa, we were going like that many miles per hour. You're like, well, I guess so.
Yeah, it's great. You look at your data and you say, how was I going this fast? I wasn't even pedaling that hard. And it's it's a cool, it feels like you're flying sometimes. So I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. So we were talking about a couple rides, but there's definitely several group rides in Northeast Ohio. Can you rattle off some of those names? Do you remember those names? Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. And so I also want to tell you, like with Stelleri, we don't necessarily have a group ride because there are so many great options available that to me, it depends on where you live. We talked about the group ride has to be convenient for your schedule and for your location. So there's a couple that I know about, and I'm sure I'm going to forget some. But obviously CTC has a bunch of group rides and you can look at their calendar and see where they're going. Gear Up Velo out of Independence does, I think it's a Tuesday or Wednesday night ride. I haven't ridden with them yet, but I believe that they have the same route every week. So that makes it pretty easy for somebody who just wants to get comfortable with the ride. Akron Bike Club, I've ridden with them for years. They have group rides almost every day of the week, and they're all different. Yeah, so cool. So I know that, they've got some more social rides earlier in the week. They have a fast ride on Thursdays, and they've got a bunch of different groups. They do post their routes ahead of time. So that's always good to know. And sometimes I make a decision when I'm going to ride with them based on where they're going to ride. Do I want to ride there or not? There's that. But I think, joining the group ride is always great. Hudson Velo has a really good, I think they have a different, they call it their coffee ride. So you're either like espresso and you're really fast, or you're cappuccino and you're moderate, and you're a latte and you're, more social. So that's kind of fun. Spin Bike Shop runs, I heard they've got a really great ride. I've never joined them just because it's not my side of town, but I know that the people that I know that join that ride are super fast riders. So it's challenging, but I think that it's a really good training opportunity. So there are things all over the place. And again, a lot of these places, especially Akron Bike Club, you do have to be a member of Akron Bike Club because of their insurance. You could join one of their group rides as a friend, and then after that, if you want to come back, they would prefer that you join so that they can, that you're under their insurance. Because as you know, all of these groups have they're probably going to make you sign waiver, or there's some form that you're going to have to fill out. But I really like them because they've got opportunities all the time, including the weekends.
Oh, that's actually it's really interesting. I didn't realize that. And so that's cool. Let's say for somebody who's kind of like up north a little bit more, like me, and if you want to like try different routes, Akron Bike Club, there we go.
Totally. And they do start in the valley. So I live close to the valley. I think it's a great place to begin the ride. But then they go out to, yeah, I think tomorrow they're going out to Hinckley. Sometimes they go out closer to Hudson. So sometimes they get you lost at Brady Lake, at Kent State, the Kent area. So it's, they're all over the place, but it really is a lot of fun. And I would encourage anybody who is interested to just kind of, look up some of those places to see what they're doing. I think that, I think most of them have something posted on a website, so you could just do a Google search or on Facebook, but I think it's a little bit harder to find them on Facebook. I think Gear Up might have theirs posted on Facebook. And then a lot of them use Strava. I know that Akron Bike Club uses Ride with GPS to post their courses. So, and they've got a whole library of courses. So it's a lot of fun. There's always something new to do.
Yeah. Before we like end here, I wanted to touch base with one thing that we we talked about, but like maybe just kind of reiterate, helmet. Always ride with a helmet. You never know what's going to happen. And you want to keep your brain a little bit safe there. So yes, always ride with a helmet. A backlight, usually they're red. Having that, usually they're not that expensive. They come in different blink modes, which is great for visibility for when you're out, whether it's by yourself in a group ride, because you may be the last person and you want that extra visibility for a vehicle, a car. Front light. Sometimes I've used it, sometimes I don't. It kind of just depends, but any type of thing that you can have. And there's nothing against like total all black kits or anything like that, but the more colors you have on, the better visibility also, because sometimes you may be out when the sun is setting a certain way or lights coming through the road a certain way. And if you could have all these things to help a car to see you, that will only benefit you. I don't know. Did I miss anything with like safety
No,
aspect?
totally. So I totally believe in front light and back light, no matter what time of the day. So, even the front light, I think, is a good daytime running light, because cars that are coming at you, a lot of accidents will happen because a car will turn left in front of a cyclist. So have a front light all the time. I ride with one all the time. There, to your point about colorful, I think absolutely being visible is primo. Like, you have to be visible. You have to make yourself visible. And this is a little bit more in the safety aspect. You want to be able to ride in a part of the road where cars are going to see you. So one of the things that I sometimes would get frustrated with group rides is that if you are coming up to a stoplight and there's a car already there, do not go around the car. Do not go to the right of the car. Get behind that car. And if possible, get a little bit to the left of the car. So if there are cars coming the other direction, they don't see just the car. They see a cyclist as well. So to me, that is a big deal, is making yourself big and bold and not cowering off to the side. There are times where you have to do that. But if there is the opportunity for you to be more visible in the middle of the road, then do that. Colors are good. Reflection is better. So there used to be something, one of my athletes had, I don't know if they still make it, but it almost looked like a stick of deodorant, but it was really a reflective
Oh
thing.
yes, I've seen this. And I haven't seen it in a long time though.
Yeah, I might still
Yeah.
have an old one. I should see if it's still there. But in the event that you might be riding in the dark or at twilight, if you just put that on the back of your calf or somewhere on your shoe, so that is the reflective part that a car will see. So it's the reflection, it's the movement that capture a motorist's eye more so than the colors. So anytime you can put even little reflective tape on your bike, if you know you're going to be out at twilight, I think it's a really good idea. For a lot of triathletes, if you only have one bike and it's a tri bike, remember that tri bikes are a little bit dicier in group rides. And so I'm not sure what CTC will tell you. Maybe stay on the bullhorns, but you shouldn't be riding an arrow when you're riding in a pack. I know that the bike clubs will not allow aero bikes. So if you decide that you're going to ride with Hudson Velo or Akron Bike Club, you will not be allowed to ride with a bike that has aero bars because they want you to have a road bike. It's just much safer and it gives you more handling ability.
Yeah,
But
I can't remember. So if somebody hears this and I'm wrong, I apologize. But I thought that if you do have your tri bike at a CTC ride, and when we say CTC, it's Cleveland Triathlon Club, that you can ride an aero if you are the lead cyclist. But other than that, you can't because of safety reasons.
okay, good. I thought that there was something to it.
Yeah.
So that is, it's just one of the things too, that when you are in that Paceline, you just need to have the ability to maneuver quickly. If there's something that comes up in front and you have to signal, or, communication. If you're with other people, communication is key. It's great to talk to the person next to you, or, to have a conversation, but honestly, safety first. So if you have to shut up for a moment so that you can get through a dicey section, or that you have to communicate something to somebody else, then by all means, shut up, tell somebody what's happening, and then you can resume your conversation later or over a beer after your ride.
Right. Safety is always number one, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think I just wanted to encourage, I just hope that we give enough information so that somebody who maybe hasn't tried a group ride will give it a whirl. I mean, it's early in the season. Oh, here's the other thing. Last thing. Okay. There's always something else, Mel. There's always something else.
Always.
If you decide that you would like to try a group ride, say any of these groups that are out doing this now, remember that everybody's kind of starting out at this time of the year. So it is going to be a lot easier to join a group in May than it is in July. Because by the time you get to July, all those people are going to be super strong. If they've been regular group riders, it's going to be a lot harder to, it's a higher barrier to entry if you decide to start later in the year. So get yourself out there, give it a try. Try it, try a bunch of different groups, see what fits, see where you like to ride, and go and have a good time, because it is going to make you a better cyclist.
And you never know the people you're going to meet, really. You can meet some awesome people.
For sure. And they might become your forever friends, because these are the people that are looking forward to seeing you every weekend riding with you.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you, Pam. There's so much good information, and this is the perfect time of year to be talking about this, because as you're saying, we're starting to get out and ride, outside our own, outside with maybe groups, and how important it is to, put yourself out there and ride with a group, because you're going to get faster, you're going to make friends, and you're going to learn new skills. I mean, I think I just summed it up, right?
Right, exactly. How much better can that get? It can't. That's amazing.
Thank you, Pam, and we look forward to the next time that we have you at Coach's Corner.
Thank you very much. See you on the road.